Homestead-Miami Speedway could be hosting a championship race once again. Diffy sounds like we'll be leading some commentaries for the NASCAR Cup Series races in 2024, and Conor Zilisch will make select NASCAR Xfinity Series starts for Junior Motorsports. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to the video. We got on NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're first going to take a look at a ton of paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple of days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ross Chastain's 2024 Busch Light Fishing scheme that we'll see this weekend at Bristol. I like this a lot. I've always loved Ross Chastain's paint schemes and Trackhouse's paint schemes. This one's no exception. This one looks great. I'm looking forward to see on the racetrack this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Tyler Ankram's 2024 Ulico scheme that we'll see in 2 races in 2024. This scheme's alright in my opinion, but it is cool to see that Ulico will be sponsoring Tyler Ankram in 2024. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Mark Truex Jr.'s 2024 Auto Owners Insurance scheme that we'll see this weekend and many other races throughout the 2024 season. There's a little bit of downgrade from last year's scheme. It's not that bad by any stretch of imagination, but I think it definitely could be a better paint scheme. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Tyler Reddick's 2024 Monster Energy scheme. This scheme, I believe, will debut this weekend at Bristol. Honestly, there's not much changing except there's a little bit of green on the front, which will differentiate a little bit. I wish Monster would change their things up a little more than they do, but it does look solid overall. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ryan Ellis's 2024 Four Loko scheme that we're going to see at Talladega. Basically how they revealed this scheme was really cool, by the way. They had Moonhead involved as well. I think this scheme looks absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous and looks absolutely amazing. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ty Gibbs' 2024 Sirius XM scheme that we're going to see this weekend at Bristol. I love this paint scheme. Gives me some of those throwback old school vibes. I don't like the Monster Energy in the back, but other than that, this is definitely one of the candidates for schemes of the year, in my opinion. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is AJ Allmendinger's 2024 Mountain Dew/Cheeto scheme that we're going to see this weekend for the Food City 500. I think this scheme looks pretty good in my opinion. I think there's a little bit too much going on in some areas of the scheme, but overall, I think there's a lot of good things about this paint scheme for this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Daniel Suarez's 2024 Jockey Outdoors scheme. This looks pretty good in my opinion. It's not absolutely perfect, but I think it does look pretty good. I do love the fact that they've changed the jockey scheme just a little bit. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Denny Hamlin's 2024 Express Oil scheme that we're going to see this weekend at Bristol. I believe this is going to be the Eastern scheme with the Mavis braking stuff. I think this paint scheme does look solid overall. Hopefully Denny Hamlin can have a solid run. I do like the purple on this paint scheme. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Bubba Wallace's 2024 Lido scheme that we'll see this weekend at Bristol. There's really not much changing with this scheme. It's basically the same thing from last year, but I did like the scheme last year, and I still like the scheme quite a bit. It does look pretty good. Hopefully we'll see him have a very, very good run with this scheme this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway. I think it does look solid and pretty good overall. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, NASCAR put out a tweet, I believe it was on Monday, saying that Joe Gibbs Racing became the first 4-car team to have each of its cars leave 50-plus laps in a NASCAR Cup Series race ever. In fact, this is the first time in NASCAR Cup Series history that 5 cars in the same manufacturer led 50-plus laps. Tyler Reddick led 50-plus laps, Denny Hamlin did, Ty Gibbs, Christopher Bell, and Mark Truex Jr. all led at least 50-plus laps in this race. Toyota put up a dominating clinic in this event, and they were extremely dominant and very, very quick in the race on Sunday. It's an incredible accomplishment for Joe Gibbs Racing, massive deal for them, and congratulations to them on making history, becoming the first organization to do this in NASCAR Cup Series history. It is an amazing and fantastic accomplishment. Congratulations to them on doing this. I'm really happy for them to see that they were able to accomplish this. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about RFK Racing. As it was announced on Monday late afternoon that RFK Racing has withdrawn their appeal for the tire suspension. And now both the tire changer and basically the tire carrier will start serving their 2-race suspension that they received after what happened in Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Remember, Chris Buescher had a wheel that came off during the race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and now they'll have to serve their penalties starting this week. Obviously, it's kind of a little bit of like exploiting the rules a little bit, because you're not, basically, you can decide we can try to appeal these penalties, and then we can go ahead and say, no, we're not appealing it anymore. That's something that could get you in trouble, especially if that continues. But overall, not surprised and shocked to see they've withdrawn their appeal, and basically they have withdrawn it for the tire suspension issues they had. I'm not shocked by this, but I am a little disappointed that it took them a long time to basically withdraw it, because in my opinion, they should not be able to exploit these rules as much as they've been able to go ahead and do it. And now we're going ahead to on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Alex Labbe. As it was announced last night that Alex Labbe is going to drive a 35 for Joey Gase Motorsports next weekend at Circuit of the Americas. Alex Labbe, for those who do not know, but probably most of you watching this know who he is a legend of the NASCAR Canada Series. I think he's won championships in the NASCAR Canada Series and has been a really solid road course racer in the past. While Joey Gase Motorsports is not in a great position when it comes to owner's points currently at the moment, if there's anybody that can take a vehicle and make it get up to the front, it is definitely a driver like Alex Labbe. I think he does have a chance for top 20 or top 25 if he can make the show, but of course he does have to qualify his way in, because they're a little bit in a difficult position when it comes to owner's points. We'll see what happens, and we'll see if Alex Labbe can have a good run with Joey Gase Motorsports next weekend at COTA. And now we're going ahead to on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Stephen Parsons. As it was announced yesterday that Stephen Parsons will drive the 75 for Henderson Motorsports once again next weekend at Circuit of the Americas. I believe that Stephen Parsons is going to be driving majority of the races for this team in 2024. I believe he is running this weekend in a 75 truck, and I think they've got another race like Richmond or something. That is another one that they are going to run. Stephen, in my opinion, is one of the more underrated drivers currently in NASCAR today. And I think he's absolutely going to make the best of it and do a very solid and really good job for Henderson Motorsports next weekend at COTA. They've been really strong on road course in the past. Remember, Parker Kligerman actually got a win with this team not too long ago. So I believe that we'll see this team have a great chance and opportunity. And I do believe that Stephen Parsons will be able to make the best out of it with Henderson Motorsports next weekend at Circuit of the Americas. And now we're going ahead to on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Chip Ganassi Racing. As it was reported by Racer.com on Monday late evening that Chip Ganassi Racing is going to be parting ways with Cadillac at the end of 2024 in their IMSA program and the World Endurance Championship programs as well. Chip Ganassi Racing has been with Cadillac, I believe, since 2021 or 2022, but this is also a little bit of a shock right there. I don't know what this means for the future of Chip Ganassi Racing, whether this means that they are going to stay in the World Endurance Championship in IMSA, because they've been basically with Cadillac for the last few years, and they've been in IMSA for a very, very long time. They haven't been in the top class really long, even though they were there for many years before, around 2016 or 2017. I wonder if they're going to go back to Ford and basically work in the GT area, or if they're going to go to a different manufacturer like Acura perhaps. Obviously, they have a big partnership with Honda in IndyCar, so I'd imagine that could be a potential possibility for them. And then, of course, they do have a partnership with, I think, Ford as well, and also they've kind of sold their Extreme E program, or maybe this could lead them to coming back to NASCAR. That's something to definitely watch out for, and we'll see if it ends up happening. Nonetheless, a little disappointing here that Chip Ganassi Racing ain't going to be with Cadillac after this season. They've had a lot of success. They almost won the championship last year. They've had a solid start to the year. We'll see if Chip Ganassi Racing can contend and do really good. It's a shame to see, though, they are leaving this team at the end of this year. Very shocking and really disappointing overall, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead to on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix TV ratings. As it was reported by Adam Stern yesterday afternoon that ESPN2 got 920 or 970,000 viewers for Saturday's F1 race from Saudi Arabia. That is down 40% from 1.523 million viewers last year. That is a massive drop. Now, granted, this race in 2024 was ran on a Saturday compared to a Sunday. So even though it was down 40% because it was on a Saturday, it's still, in my opinion, even though it would have been down not as much probably if it was run on a Sunday, it still was down massively. Now, why is it down as much as it is? Well, one, less of the casual fans are tuning in because there's less interest. Why? Well, Max Verstappen has been pretty much dominating every single race. If I'm not mistaken, Max Verstappen has basically led the championship for the last 45 or 46 straight events and straight races. So he's been completely dominating every single race and has now got a 15-point lead after the first two events. And the average of the average winning duration he's had so far at this point, I think it's about 16 or 17 seconds, and combined, it's about 34 or 35 seconds combined that he has won over his teammate, which is why there's no excitement. And Max Verstappen, no disrespect, doesn't have the greatest personality. And also the other thing as well to think about too is basically you got a championship that's almost locked up at this point, and you got a lot of the drama that's kind of taking over the media that people really don't like. Overall, in my opinion, it is a little disappointing to see the ratings down, but also a lot of people are also pissed off about the Andretti fiasco, and that's why they're not as happy about the ratings being down, and they're not really shocked about it overall. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Matt Jaskol. Now, Matt Jaskol put out a tweet on Monday evening basically indicating that he is looking to make his NASCAR Cup Series debut next weekend at Circuit of the Americas, driving the number 66 car for MBM Motorsports. MBM Motorsports, to my understanding, has only made 2 or 3 NASCAR Cup Series starts, and they failed to qualify, of course, for the Daytona 500. They did have the 55 car that ran with J.J. Yeley, and then they did run the 66 car with Borised in a couple one-off races in 2022. But they haven't ran the car since 2022, but last year they were trying to get some sponsorship, and they were trying to get some funding to run in 2023, but obviously those deals sadly fell through. Matt Jaskol has been in motorsports for many, many years, and let's be honest, I don't think Matt Jaskol is the greatest driver in the world, but it would be really cool to see MBM Motorsports show back up in the NASCAR Cup Series, at least run a few select races. And if they can get the sponsorship or funding from a couple different companies, they will be able to show up. And hopefully they can get that funding and the sponsorship, because the more cars that we have on the racetrack, I think the better it is going to be for everybody. So I really hope they're able to get the sponsorship and they're able to get the funding and they can show up to the racetrack this season. It really sucks to see that they're having a little bit of issues getting the funding ready to go. Hopefully we can see Matt Jaskol get the funding and the sponsorship that he needs to get on the racetrack, because in my opinion, Matt Jaskol is someone who deserves to be in the NASCAR Cup Series field. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about North Wilkesboro. Now, currently at the moment, there is a Goodyear tire test that is taking place. Yesterday, you had 3 Craftsman Truck Series drivers of Corey Heim, Ben Rhodes, and Christian Eckes. I believe today and tomorrow you have Joey Logano, Ty Gibbs, and William Byron testing at North Wilkesboro. Why? Well, obviously, they just repaved North Wilkesboro Speedway. Yesterday, we had basically, I think Caden Honeycutt actually commented on this, and he said that they were almost 2 seconds a lap faster than what they ran in qualifying. I think it was like 20.27 is the time that they ran in qualifying last year for the top speed, and I believe, it's not mistaken, Ben Rhodes or Christian Eckes ran an 18.27 second lap. That is, like I said, almost 2 seconds a lap faster than what they ran the last time they ran at North Wilkesboro, which is absolutely huge. 1, it's going to increase the race pace, and 2, I think it's going to make the race a little bit more exciting, and I think we could see a pretty solid racing product, at least in the Truck Series for sure. Now, the Cup Series racing product might be something that we'll have to keep an eye out on, because we know that the short track racing has not been absolutely amazing in recent years and recent seasons, but I'm really excited about the North Wilkesboro weekend. I think the truck race, because I thought the truck race last year was pretty good. There was some solid racing for sure, and it was definitely enjoyable in some instances for sure. So we'll see what happens, how the racing is. We'll see, probably hear more about the Goodyear tire test today and tomorrow, because like I said, William Byron, Joey Logano, and of course, Joe and Ty Gibbs are also currently testing at the moment. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see how it ends up going. But right now, there is a Goodyear tire test taking place. We'll see how it ends up going for everyone involved. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the St. Petersburg Grand Prix TV ratings. According to Adam Stern, NBC got 975,000 viewers for Sunday's IndyCar opener. That is down from 1.189 million in 2023, a drop of around 15 to 20% in TV ratings. That is still a massive drop. Now, why is IndyCar dropping in TV ratings, and why was this race down? Well, one, I don't think the racing product was that good on Sunday. I think a lot of people probably tuned out near the end of the race because everyone knew at this point that Joseph Newgarden more than likely was going to win the race. He pulled out to about a 6 or 7 second lead. The other thing is that it's the lack of promotion. IndyCar has been struggling immensely to promote their series and promote their product. Because granted, IndyCar generally has had a pretty good racing product over the course of the last couple of years and the last couple of seasons. But when you've had the same car and basically the same engine package for 12 years and you haven't changed the chassis, which by the way, they're not planning to do that for another 3 years, it is going to become a very predictable race. And granted, they are, from according to what David Land said on his channel, they are planning to debut the new hybrid systems at around mid-Ohio. But some people are even believing they're going to delay this until the end of 2024 and wait till the start of the 2025 season. That's what a lot of people think is going to end up happening when it comes to that. I think a lot of people are kind of getting tired, and it's going to become pretty predictable. And you had NASCAR going on that same day as well, even though it did happen after the race. But people were definitely tuning in to race day especially. So I'm disappointed in the TV ratings for sure, but at the same token, same time, I'm not surprised, especially when you have a pretty predictable racing product. It's not a shock and surprise to see that the ratings are down, because when you have a dominant driver winning these races and led 92 laps, less people are going to tune in. Granted, I think the racing is better in IndyCar than Formula One, but when you have a lot of people basically seeing the same thing over and over again, they are going to get very tired of it really quickly. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Greg Olson. Now, on Monday was the first day in North Carolina that betting became available. And it became a really big thing because he had a lot of media members that were at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And Greg Olson put out a very, very bold bet. He is betting that Bubba Wallace is going to win the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series Championship. Now, I saw a lot of people giving him backlash on social media for saying that Bubba Wallace is going to win the championship, but obviously it is a bet. Look, could Bubba Wallace win a NASCAR Cup Series Championship one day? Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I think Bubba Wallace has gotten better and better on a year-by-year basis, and last year at times was a consistent top 5 and top 10 driver. And for the first 2 races of the season, he had 2 straight top 5 finishes. It was in the top 5 in the standings. However, the last couple weeks have not gone so well. He unfortunately had major tire issues at Vegas and then finished 16th at Phoenix. We are going to track like Bristol, where he could run pretty well. So I think he nearly got a top 10 the last time he ran on Bristol concrete. I think the thing to think about too is Bubba Wallace is basically in the lower end, or basically lower end of the top 10, top 15 area of the drivers that could win the title. But I think that if there's anybody that could jump up there, it is Bubba Wallace. Because like I said, he has gotten better on a year-by-year basis. He's gotten help from people like Kurt Busch, who's been there to try to help him in a very big way to grow and develop as a driver. And he's got the confidence he had when he was competing for a Truck Series title a few years ago. He's basically got the confidence back, which I think is really huge, especially for someone like Bubba Wallace, who really needs the confidence to show up. And I think having that confidence is really going to help him. So it's interesting to see that Greg Olson is betting that Bubba Wallace could win the title. I wouldn't be shocked or surprised at this point, considering how chaotic this is, with how crazy the playoffs have been, how much better Bubba Wallace has gotten on road courses especially. I could definitely see Bubba Wallace having a really great chance and a really strong opportunity to win the championship this season. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Bass Pro Shops. As it was announced yesterday that Bass Pro Shops is back to sponsor Noah Gragson in 2024, and they are going to sponsor him this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway. They were expected to join Noah Gragson at some point in the 2024 season. That's one of the big reasons why Noah Gragson got the 10 car in the first place. But Bass Pro Shops has been working with Noah Gragson for a very long time. They didn't really sponsor him at all in 2023 when he drove for Legacy Motor Club, but they worked with Noah Gragson throughout his whole entire Xfinity Series career. Yes, they were loyal to Junior Motorsports as well, but they've also been loyal to Tony Stewart as well, which is another reason why they are sponsoring Noah Gragson. And look at Noah Gragson. He's got some big sponsorship this year. Black Rifle Coffee's come on and sponsor him. Surf Pro is sponsoring him, which has been working with Gragson and Kyle Busch. They also seen True Timber, a couple other companies, and Ranger Boats has also been working with Noah Gragson as well this season. It is really awesome and phenomenal to see that Noah Gragson is picking up more sponsorship and funding. And I think those sponsors that he's getting is really helping his on-track performance. Noah Gragson has been impressing me so far this year. Outside of the race at Atlanta, Noah Gragson has finished in the top 12. And right now, if not for the 35-point penalty that he received, Noah Gragson right now will be sitting 15th in the standings. Now, he's 26 in the points, so he's made a pretty solid recovery. And right now, I think it's only about 35 or 40 points outside of the cutoff line, so he easily can make that up, especially with how well he's been performing. But I think he's been arguably the strongest Stewart-Haas racing driver so far, and I did not have that coming into this year where Noah Gragson was going to be the strongest SHR driver. So I've been really impressed with him on that front. I think Noah Gragson's only going to get better as the season goes on and the season progresses, especially if performance continues. We're going to a track like Bristol where he's been pretty good, but I think it's also really awesome to see that Bassler Shops is back and they're working with Noah Gragson in the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Joey Logano versus John Hunter Nemechek. Now, if you watched the NASCAR Cup Series race at Phoenix Raceway, you saw the incident between John Hunter Nemechek and Joey Logano. I think it was on the restart with around 100 laps to go. John Hunter Nemechek just basically pile drive Joey Logano up in turn number 1 and completely dumps him and backs in the outside wall, and Derek Krause, Zane Smith, and multiple other drivers were collected in the incident and the wreck. Joey Logano, after the incident, was clearly not very happy with John Hunter Nemechek, and he basically told John Hunter Nemechek that he needs to man up for the incident. Now, after the race concluded, I think it was Matt Weaver from Sportsnet interviewed him, and John Hunter basically said that it's my fault and I'll apologize and I will call Joey Logano at some point today. First of all, I want to give John Nemechek a lot of props for manning up that he made a mistake, because clearly John Nemechek just pile drived him. As much as a lot of people think that Joey Logano is in the wrong for calling him out, John Hunter's absolutely not was in the wrong in this situation, because as much as Joey Logano was slow all race day and John Hunter definitely was clearly faster, you can't just send somebody in the corner and completely pile drive them and wreck them. I know people will bring up, well, Joey Logano's done in the past, and you're absolutely right. Joey Logano's done that in the past, and I thought it was unacceptable back then that he did that. But Joey Logano's had a little bit of feistiness with these young Toyota drivers especially. He's had issues with Ty Gibbs at the start of the year. You go back to the Clash, and now he's had issues with John Hunter Nemechek at this point. I don't think Joey brought this up on his show, but I'll give John Hunter a lot of props for admitting on the race after. Hopefully they have talked at this point and they've resolved their issues and differences and they can compete, because Joey Logano needs to turn his season around really quickly and doesn't need to focus on these petty rivalries. He needs to start focusing on trying to win a championship, because every even year he's made the Final Four, and so far he's like 30th in the standings. He really needs to turn the corner really quickly, because otherwise he's going to fall behind the wayside and there's going to be no chance and opportunity of him competing for a title in 2024. Needs to turn the season around. We'll see how he ends up doing throughout the rest of the year, but it's interesting to see that both of them had issues with each other after the race. It seems like things hopefully will get resolved so they can now focus on trying to win a championship. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about FICO. As it was announced yesterday morning that FICO is going to sponsor Kyle Busch for 2 races as of now in 2024. They're going to sponsor him this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway, and then they're going to sponsor him at Dover in May. FICO is one of the biggest credit card companies out there and credit companies out in the United States currently at the moment. So this is a massive and huge deal for Kyle Busch to pick up another major sponsor in funding. To my understanding, Kyle Busch is fully sold out on sponsorship for the 2024 season. Now, I think FICO had initially announced that they were going to be an associate sponsor for this year, but now they're joining as a full-scale season sponsor for a few races this year. It's been incredible to see all the sponsors that have come on to work with Kyle Busch this season. He's had companies this year like Zone is going to sponsor for a majority of races. 3 Cheese back to sponsor this year. They originally thought they were going to be leaving Kyle Busch this year. They're sticking around. You've, of course, got Cheddar sticking around. You've got the Bourbon Company, Rebel Bourbon, coming in to sponsor. You've got a lot of big companies and sponsors that are sticking around with Kyle Busch. We all remember, of course, that Kyle Busch was having issues sponsored with Joe Gibbs Racing. Obviously, they've changed the way JGR IndyCar has, changed the way how they're sponsoring stuff. Now they've kind of gone for the full season sponsors, and I think they're starting to realize that, hey, we probably need to start moving toward how the other teams are doing it. That's why RCR is such a better when it comes to picking up sponsors than a team like Joe Gibbs Racing. I think they're finally starting to realize that, hey, we need to start working on toward getting some of these smaller sponsor deals instead of going for the big checks and the big sponsor deals. Nonetheless, so it's really exciting to see. And again, I'm just happy to see that Kyle Busch does have another new sponsor for this weekend. He's going to have the sponsor for a couple weeks. It's been good to see that Kyle Busch continues to pick up new sponsors and new brandings for the 2024 season. Glad to see that FICO will be joining on to work with Kyle Busch throughout the 2024 season. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Phoenix TV ratings. Now, according to Fox Sports and Adam Stern, Fox got 4.028 million viewers for Sunday's Cup race at Phoenix. That is up 19% from 2023, which last year the race got 3.389 million viewers. That is one of the biggest jumps that I have seen percentage-wise and viewership-wise in a very long time. To be up nearly 20% from last year is absolutely phenomenal and a massive dub for the sport. Now, why is NASCAR headed toward a really good direction, even though the race may not have been the most exciting race overall? Well, number one, you have more social media movement. After the race at Atlanta Motor Speedway, we saw a lot of new fans come in and enjoy the racing product of Las Vegas, and we have seen that happen. The second thing, the Netflix documentary. The Netflix documentary, in my opinion, has been a pretty big reason why we've seen fans starting to tune in. I know it took a couple years for Drive to Survive to really help Formula One, at least in the short term, but I think that Drive to Survive show really helped Formula One grow. And now you've got the speed show that NASCAR's already talking about renewing for a second season, full speed. They're talking about it, and there's a reason for that, because it's helping grow the sport in a pretty massive and huge way. The third reason is a little bit of the Chase Elliott fact. You also did have the NCAA, the selection show happen, among other things, where people were tuning in. But again, I think it's just that NASCAR is having such a great start, and the racing product is good, and the commentary on TV is really good right now. That's another reason why people are tuning into the sport, and to see that the sport is continuing to head back in a great direction is phenomenal. And if I'm not mistaken, I think NASCAR Man brought this up on Twitter, but last year only 4 races had more than 4 million viewers. I think that basically Daytona 500, the Auto Club race, the Chicago Street Course, and maybe the championship race were the only 4, or Talladega, were the only 4 races that had over 4 million viewers. So far this year, all 4 points-paying races have had 4 million plus viewers. To see the sport continue to head in a positive direction is really, really good. I know that Daytona 500 got rained out, but this fact that it's up 11% on the race that happened on time, I think is phenomenal and absolutely incredible. We're going to Bristol, which is kind of a little bit of a smaller market, but it is going to be on main Fox, so hopefully they can have over 4 million viewers. I don't know if that's going to continue, but I do think there's a really good chance of possibility that Bristol might be up from last year, considering it's probably going to happen on time. We'll see how it ends up going, but I think this is a massive and a huge dub for the sport overall. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. Now, Denny Hamlin spoke on his podcast about the engine size in the current engine package. And Denny Hamlin says that the engine builds are the same at 670 horsepower versus 900 horsepower. They have not changed. Why? Well, the current engine that we have is a 900 horsepower engine that's been neutered down to 670 horsepower. And yesterday, the storm of the internet came out because Kyle Larson went on the Dale Jr. download about 30 minutes into that episode, because Kyle Larson had won the Las Vegas Motor Speedway recently, and he went on the podcast and said that he's been told by people at Hendrick Motorsports and executives and engine builders at Hendrick Motorsports that right now they could run 1,000 horsepower at Bristol Motor Speedway and it wouldn't cost anything. At this point, we are hearing more and more drivers speak out about increasing the horsepower. They're wanting more horsepower in this car, at least on the short tracks and the road courses. Why? Well, the racing product on the short tracks and road courses has been very underwhelming, and it has not been very good in recent years and recent seasons, especially in the next-gen era. And I believe that increasing the horsepower, at least on those types of tracks, would create a better racing product. If you want to keep it on if you want to keep the 670 horsepower package on the intermediate tracks, fine, that is understandable. But I think that if you increase horsepower, it is going to make the racing product better. I'm so tired of the excuses of a new manufacturer coming in. We've heard the same conversation now for 10 plus years. And granted, there's a lot of talk that Honda is going to be coming into NASCAR in the not-so-distant future. But at this point, the fact that we've had drivers for the last couple years saying to increase the horsepower, at this point, why not test it and try it? And by the way, we basically are not going to get a really good test on how good the short track package is until we get to Richmond in a couple weeks, or we get Dakota, because we do have a road course next week at Circuit of the Americas. But I'm so tired of the excuse of a new manufacturer coming in, and NASCAR said they've had discussions about increasing the horsepower. At this point, let's increase the horsepower. I think the racing product will be at least a little better. I know Chris Rice said, but the field is going to get spread out. Not really on a short track, Chris. It's really not going to get spread out. If we do it on a short track, it's not going to get spread out, my friend, because you don't see them get spread out. The race will get better. The tires will out much quicker, and we'll see better racing in general. I know there's, like I said, a lot of talk that Honda is going to be coming in soon, and that's exciting and all, but I think racing product is the most important thing. You've got to get your racing product better. I don't care about a manufacturer joining if the racing product isn't good. And if they're the reason the racing product is down, I don't want them joining. I'd love to see a new manufacturer come in, absolutely. But absolutely, we need to see a better racing product. I'm so tired of the excuses of the manufacturer talk. It seems like it's a consistent year-by-year basis. We hear about manufacturer left, right, and center, and then we basically have heard the same thing for years. We thought Dodge was coming in to work with SHR potentially, even RFK. That didn't happen. We know Honda's in talks to join NASCAR. We'll see if that ends up happening. But until then, NASCAR, stop biting the bullet. Stop testing the car at Phoenix, mind you, and go to a track like Richmond or go to Martinsville, because those are two tracks that are very important. Let's stop doing it, and let's increase the horsepower. I am so sick and tired of NASCAR not freaking listening to this, and they should at this point just listen and increase it, because I think the racing is going to be a lot better. But that's just my honest opinion. Hopefully NASCAR does listen to me and other fans and drivers, because we've had drivers like Chase Elliott come out and say it. I think Kyle Busch has come out and said something about it. Christopher Bell's come out and say it. Let's increase the horsepower and make the racing product a lot better. Because if we can make it a lot better, I think the sport is even going to be in a better position, because the sport's in a pretty good position right now. But I think one of the ways that will get it even better than it is right now is increasing the horsepower. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the first of three major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about Lee Diffy. As it was reported by Adam Stern this morning, that NBC Sports is planning a switch to its NASCAR booth for part of the 2024 season, with Lee Diffy to take over as lead announcer for Cup races in the weeks after the Olympic break. This is absolutely huge. If you want to know my opinion on Lee Diffy is one of the best motorsports commentators we have had in the last 20 to 25 years come onto the scene. He's commentated Formula One races on NBC. He's commentated IndyCar races for many, many years. And he's also commentated NASCAR races in the past as well. And Lee Diffy always brings the energy and always brings the excitement. And he makes these booths a lot better. So to see that he is going to be joining NBC not joining, he's already part of NBC, but joining the Cup Series broadcast later this year, I think is really, really huge for NBC. Considering the fact now that Dale Jr., it sounds like, is no longer going to be with NBC. It's been kind of confirmed at this point he's not going to be with NBC this year, and basically he's taking the year off, and he's going to be going to Amazon and to Warner Brothers. You have to have someone come in to make that booth a lot better. And while I think it may struggle at the start, the fact they're making this move shows that NBC cares and they're wanting to make everything as good as possible, considering I think Fox has also shown a little bit of improvement with their broadcast with bringing Kevin Harvick in. You need to spice things up a little bit. And I think bringing Lee Diffy, and he's going to do an amazing job, because Lee Diffy is an absolutely amazing and a great commentator. But there's also a lot of discussion that comes from this as well. What's going to happen to his IndyCar tenure? Because with him working with NASCAR, he might not be back with IndyCar. I imagine that probably Kevin Lee is going to commentate some races. It's also no secret that it sounds like behind the scenes that probably IndyCar is going to Fox. So maybe NBC is going to keep Lee Diffy around, and basically they're going to put him there. What does this mean for Rick Allen? Because Rick Allen is going to commentate a few races before the break, but I would imagine that maybe Rick Allen is also moving on from NBC, or he's just going to be commentating all the Xfinity Series races, and Lee Diffy is going to be calling all the Cup Series races. I go back to some of those calls he made in 2017. The Watkins Glen call, the Martin Truex Jr. rolling off a hard-charging Matt Kenseth with him running out of gas. I go back to Michigan, the last restart where Kyle Larson made a 4-wide move in that 42 car and passed drivers like Trevor Bayne and Matt Kenseth and made a 4-wide, which was extremely exciting to watch. Some of his Xfinity Series calls back in 2015, you may have seen Kyle Busch win races in Xfinity and see Chase Elliott win that race at Richmond, and Carl Edwards is also in the booth as well. I think Lee Diffy is an absolutely amazing commentator, and I think he is going to make NBC a really good broadcast team because, in my opinion, them losing Dale Jr., I think is a absolutely major and massive loss for their brand and for their team. So I am excited about this. Like I said, Lee Diffy is an absolutely amazing commentator, and I think he's going to do an absolutely outstanding and fantastic job with NBC this year. And I think he's going to make that booth stronger because while I think Jeff Burton and Steve Letarte have definitely shown improvement and they've gotten better for sure, I do believe there needed to be a little bit of changes coming to their booth. And having Lee Diffy come in and commentate these races, I think he's going to do overall an amazing and a very solid job. Excited about this, and nonetheless, I think it's a great move overall, in my opinion. It's amazing to see Lee Diffy's going to be commentating races in Cup once again. He's always done a great job in them, and I wonder in 2025 with the new NBC deal if we're going to be seeing Lee Diffy commentate every single race, and Rick Allen will be getting phased out. I think they're finally starting to phase out on Rick Allen a little bit, because while I think Rick Allen's gotten better, he's not in the same league as Lee Diffy when it comes to commentating races. So nonetheless, really happy about this move. As much as I do like Rick Allen, I think Lee Diffy overall is a much better lead commentator for the sport than Rick Allen is. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next major story of today's episode as we're talking about Conor Zilisch. Now, I talked about this on the channel yesterday in a special video that if you've not tuned in, go check that out. But yesterday it was announced that Conor Zilisch is going to be driving the 88 car for Junior Motorsports for a select number of races this year. He'll make his Xfinity Series debut at Watkins Glen, then he's going to race at Kansas, then he's going to race at Homestead, and then he's going to race at Phoenix for the championship race. For those of you who do not know who Conor Zilisch is 17 years old. And he's currently under contract with Trackhouse Racing as a development driver. It had been planned that he was going to make some Xfinity Series and Truck Series starts for the 2024 season, but of course he has turned 18 years old before he can race in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. But the other facts about Conor Zilisch has gone out and won races in other forms. He has won some Cars Late Model Tour races. He won some races on ovals. He also competed in a World Karting Championship with 134 drivers in Italy and went on to win that championship. He's also won the Rolex 24 in the LMP2 class. And last year, in his ARCA debut driving the 28 car for Pinnacle Racing Group, he was dominating the race with a broken track bar. Or broken sway bar, is what he had on that car. And he nearly won the race to only get dumped by Corey Heim on the last lap of the event. Conor Zilisch is one of the best talents that we currently have in NASCAR today. And I think he's going to do an absolutely outstanding and incredible job in the seat. I would not be shocked or surprised with how talented he is as a race car driver. I would not be shocked if he goes out and wins in this 88 car. And you think about the long-term future as well. Trackhouse Racing is setting itself up for a bright future. You've, of course, got Ross Chastain, who is your driver who's going to be competing for championships for the next 5 to 10 years and is bringing good sponsorship. You have Daniel Suarez, who I think is going to be staying with Trackhouse, especially after winning Atlanta Motor Speedway, who has been a solid driver at Trackhouse, who has been doing good things, and it represents a really great brand. You've got Shane Van Gisbergen, who is absolutely killing it in Xfinity at this point. He's had 2 top 10s and 3 top 12 finishes so far, and he's still in playoff contention and has been pretty good and getting better and better on ovals. And we're going to COTA next week, where I think he's absolutely the favorite going into that event. And then you have Zane Smith, a Truck Series champion, who's probably going to be a spot of their team full-time in 2024, and 5, I should say. And while he's definitely been struggling a little bit to start this season, I think that's more of a Spire issue than anything else, though Carson Osvar has been outperforming that equipment. Now you've got Conor Zilisch joining the fray. And now we think about this 88 car a little bit too, because obviously we've got Bubba Wallace making his Xfinity Series debut in a couple weeks at Richmond. You've got Conor Zilisch coming in. So who could be some other candidates who could get chances and opportunities? What about Roger Carruth? Roger Carruth has not announced anything yet for 2024. I wonder if he would get a chance and opportunity to get behind the wheel. What about someone like a Kyle Busch? What about maybe like Carl Edwards coming out of retirement? What about Kevin Harvick? What about even drivers like Matt DiBenedetto? What if they had a Ford car for Hailie Deegan? That'd be really cool. She got an opportunity that probably never would happen with Junior Motorsports. What about all these other drivers like I said, Kevin Harvick? What about Kurt Busch coming out of retirement? I think that would be really cool for sure if Kurt Busch came out of retirement in a Junior Motorsports car. Obviously, Dale Jr. is giving drivers chances and opportunities, and obviously Dale Jr. has a pretty big partnership with Justin Marks, which is a big reason why this is happening this year and this season. But nonetheless, to see that Conor Zilisch is going to get the chance and the opportunity to drive for the team in 2024, I think is really exciting and very awesome to see. So I'm very happy for Conor Zilisch, and nonetheless glad to see that he will be making his Xfinity Series debut in August or September with Junior Motorsports and having Trackhouse support as well. I think he's going to do a phenomenal and incredible job with this team in the 2024 season. Glad to see that he's getting the chance and opportunity to drive for Junior Motorsports, because I think he's going to have a really great chance and a strong opportunity to win the races that he's running, especially with Junior Motorsports, with how good of a team that they are. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Homestead-Miami Speedway. Now, Jordan Bianchi was doing the Teardown podcast with Jeff Gluck. Now they're, of course, part of The Athletic, but they're also, of course, part of Dirty Mo Media. And this is just a little prediction that he has had, but he's been speaking to a lot of people about where the championship race could be next year. And according to Jordan Bianchi, he says Homestead-Miami Speedway could be hosting the season finale once again in 2025, hosting the championship race in Phoenix after the race we had yesterday or a couple days ago. He indicates that it sounds like Phoenix may not be hosting the championship race in 2025. This is absolutely huge, and granted right now, it is just a prediction. But let's be honest with ourselves. Phoenix is a really good facility. From everything I've talked to and people who basically have went to Phoenix Raceway, the facility itself is absolutely incredible. And what they've done to that track to make it look as good as it is, especially with how the city rallies around this track, I think is absolutely incredible, especially with Phoenix and Avondale rallying around the racetrack and people showing up. Hell, they had a sellout crowd this weekend, which I think was really, really incredible for a spring race, and they're probably going to sell out for the championship race as well. Here's the problem, though, with Phoenix. The racing product. The racing product at Phoenix is just not good. The racing restarts are always amazing, but after that, you can't really pass. It doesn't matter what type of car you bring to this racetrack. The configuration of this track just right now is not that good when it comes to racing. And it's a shame, too, because like I said, the track looks beautiful. They've done a lot of great things to this facility and track, and on that front, it's one of the top. When it comes to the racing product, it just is not very good, and it doesn't deserve to host the season finale. Now contrast that with Homestead-Miami Speedway. Yes, Homestead does need renovations, but if they do become the season finale once again, I do believe that they will be able to renovate the racetrack, and on top of that, they have a great racing product. I thought last year's races, Xfinity and Cup especially, were really, really good. And when they hosted a season finale, yes, you had the drivers up front of the championship contention that were dominating, but you also had great racing going on in Xfinity and Cup as well. And there's a lot more memorable moments that have happened at Homestead-Miami Speedway. 2011, the battle between Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards. 2004, a fantastic race that saw Greg Biffle win his second career race, and we saw Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon and Kurt Busch all battle. 2005, Tony Stewart gets his first championship, and a great finish between Mark Martin and Greg Biffle. 2007, we saw a solid product. 2008, we saw the field mileage finish where Carl Edwards went out to win the event. 2013, one of the best races in the Gen 6 era between Denny Hamlin, Dale Jr., and I believe also Matt Kenseth were in that battle as well. we saw a fantastic racing product at that track when it was the championship finale. Kyle Busch getting his first and second championships. Joey Logano getting his first championship. We always saw fantastic and great racing. And yes, it might benefit drivers like Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, and even drivers like Denny Hamlin and Ryan Blaney who are good at that racetrack. But guess what? Sometimes drivers are going to be better there than others. I think Homestead-Miami Speedway is a much more worthy racetrack to host season finale right now when it comes to the racing product. More people want it back. And the fact that it sounds like there's a really great chance and a strong possibility of this happening, I have predicted this for the last couple years that they were going to go there. I think they were just waiting for the TV contract to end because remember the new TV contract's coming in 2025. And industry insiders believe that Homestead's going to get the season finale back. Like I said, and people don't want it. You look at the ratings as well. The ratings have been declining at Phoenix. I think last year had maybe 3 or 3.2 million viewers, or less than 3 million people tuning in the championship race. It's just not a great racing product, and the fans are not enjoying it. Unless people are tuning in too, depending on which drivers are in the championship finale. Because the last year didn't have Bubba Wallace in there, Kyle Busch or Ross Chastain in the championship finale. I think Phoenix Raceway, well, yes, it's worthy if the racing would be better. It's just the racing isn't good at Phoenix right now. It's just been underwhelming. I thought the race was okay this weekend, but the racing has just not been that great at Phoenix in recent years. And I do believe that Homestead-Miami Speedway in general and in a nutshell is just a much better racing product to host a championship finale than a track like Phoenix. I know they're probably thinking Auto Club maybe in the future too, if they can get that track figured out. Maybe they could host season finale as well, which I think that'd be cool in Los Angeles. But right now, in my personal opinion, Homestead is a much more deserving season finale than a track like Phoenix. But that is just my opinion. So, that is going to be today's NASCAR news and motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me through Facebook and Instagram and support on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. Do you think Homestead will host the championship finale? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Conor Zilisch making select starts and Lee Diffy joining the broadcast booth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later today on the channel, I'm at the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race picks for Bristol. Then tomorrow on the channel, the NASCAR Cup Series race picks for Bristol on the concrete. And also, I will have the paint scheme preview dropping as well. And then on Friday, I should have a NASCAR news video dropping. And Saturday, I'm having the SVG video dropping along with, of course, the Truck Series race view if the weather can hold up. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. And I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.